Hello, I'm Rick Harp. This is your APTN News Brief for Friday, November 19th. We begin in flood-devastated parts of British Columbia, where military help is on the way for a province now under a state of emergency. A first wave of some 300 troops will help get people to safety, clear roads, and provide air support. And by declaring a state of emergency, the province now has more options for responding to the disaster. It allows the government to impose travel restrictions as well as implement bans on hoarding and price gouging. Now, as of last night, nearly 20,000 British Columbians were still unable to go home, either because they were evacuated or had found themselves stranded with no way to get home. Tina House spoke with one such stranded family.
I'm here with the D'Angeli family that are here in Langley at a hotel trying to get home.
So we made a quick trip to Abbotsford thinking my wife just got hired as a professor in a tenure track position at University of Fraser Valley. So we went in for some quick meetings and noticed the traffic getting bigger and bigger, and we thought, we'll grab something to eat, we'll take our time, letting what we thought maybe was an accident, with just letting it run its course. And we're glad we did, because it ended up closing the highway and then finding out that, it was the flooding and somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 cars were abandoned and had to be left to, and people had to be rescued. So I'm grateful that we weren't there for that. But, we booked it on here, the only hotel that was available. We literally got the last room here in Langley.
To New Brunswick, where the province's police commission has determined the officer who fatally shot Chantel Moore last summer had done nothing wrong. The officer encountered the First Nations woman during a so-called wellness check back in June 2020. However, the investigation did come across issues that lay outside the commission's mandate, issues a coroner's inquest set for next February may choose to raise. To Manitoba, where a number of Indigenous people with tuberculosis were once sent to a handful of quote-unquote Indian hospitals. Sadly, not everyone who was sent there came home. Daryl Stranger now on a new resource meant to help families locate those they'd lost.
The University of Winnipeg created the Manitoba Indigenous Tuberculosis History Project in 2019 as a social media campaign. The goal was to identify unnamed Indigenous TB patients in photos donated by the Manitoba Lung Association.
And in a lot of cases, there is a wish to skip to reconciliation ahead of truth. It's truth and reconciliation, not just truth. And so our project is part of that truth-telling.
While identifying patients is still a goal of the project, a new research guide is being developed to help Indigenous communities and families find those missing TB patients that never came home.
This is something that's critical to truth and reconciliation and really healing around missing people from communities.
A searchable database of historical photos and resources for researching Indigenous TB history will be part of the guide being led by Dr. Ann Lindsay.
What we're looking at is trying to find a number of ways that communities can tell their own stories about the history and record their own stories. So there's going to be an oral history project coming up. There's been other research in the past. And then this project as well to try and help people be able to find their own information about what's happened to family members.
Dr. Lindsay previously worked for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and has spent years helping families research connections to residential and Indian hospital schools. Simplifying the process of looking for a missed loved one is her goal.
What we want to put together is a website that not only just has sort of links and ideas of places to ask, but a process about, go here first, and this is the kind of information that you need to go to this next step, and also just present it in a way that is useful and understandable for the people who are going to want to use this kind of research knowledge.
An oral history project with former hospital staff is also in the works, along with a traveling exhibit. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And finally, the Alberta government has just announced funding for emergency shelters across the province. But as Chris Stewart reports, some say the money should have come much sooner.
On Wednesday, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney announced $23 million in funding, $13 million for emergency homeless shelters, $6 million for COVID isolation facilities, $2 million for emergency women's shelters, and $1.5 million to create 200 beds at Commonwealth Stadium. 11 shelters across the province will benefit from the cash. The NDP Seniors and Housing Critic says the province should have provided the money sooner.
Jason Kenney waited till we had a foot of snow on the ground and temperatures plummeted before he did anything to help Albertans.
Judith Gale is with the Bear Clan Patrol. They see firsthand every day how severe the homeless problem is.
We need more housing. We need more family shelters. We need to help our brothers and sisters get out of this perpetual cycle.
The government also announced a task force. 16 members will collaborate and try to find a way to reduce and potentially eliminate homelessness. One of the members is Cheryl Whiskey Jack. She is the executive director of the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society. She says the funding is welcome, but more is needed.
It sounds like a lot of money, but the problem we have is a wicked problem. We live in a province where it's very cold, 6-7 months out of the year. This is a very important job that we have to do ahead of us.
She says the group will work together to find solutions.
The task force is being tasked with providing direction and expertise to the development of the model and to develop that draft model with recommendations within 6 months. So we have a very short timeline to get our work done. At the end of it, we have to submit a final report to the minister with specific and actionable recommendations.
Recommendations that she says will work towards eliminating homelessness.
What we're going to be doing, I'm hoping, is creating a path to that. It has to happen in steps. And so the shelter work that's happening out there is an important step in that process. It's a way to engage people to that path to being housed.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
That's your APTN News Brief for Friday, November 19th. I'm Rick Harp.